So I'm going to make two swings, and there's going to be a very slight difference, but it's going to give me a very different golf shot, and it's something I wish I'd have known years ago because it had helped me as a golfer, and hopefully it'll help you. So a stock shot for me, 7-iron in hand. We can see that one really curving from right to left. Low point only slightly ahead of the golf ball. Nearly 10 degrees from the inside, 7 degrees closed. So it's not awful, but with that amount of shape, I feel like I can get in a little bit of trouble. Whereas when I hit this shot, we see a little bit more club head speed. The low point moved much further forward at nearly 4 inches. The path much more neutral at only 3.5 degrees from the inside. Club face only 3.5 closed, and a much more playable golf shot in my opinion. So did you spot the difference? And it was very, very subtle. If you did, comment below, because in a second, I'm going to show you why there was such a big difference. So, did you comment? I hope you did, and I'll obviously reply and let you know if you were right. Now, the only change there for me was width of stance. So, over the years, whenever I've watched myself on camera, I've always felt like I was a little bit too narrow. But as I widened my stance, because it felt different, and I didn't really see a big difference in the shot, I didn't stick with wider, I'd kind of go a little bit more neutral. But since I've purchased the Swing Catalyst, it's really opened my eyes as to how I use the ground best in the golf swing, not only to create a bit more speed, but actually to give me a bit more control in my golf swing. So there's 3 ways that we use the ground. We kind of move our pressure side to side, we twist into the ground, and we push down into the ground. And for me personally, side to side is a really important movement. So I'm just going to run through the Swing Catalyst stuff with those 2 swings and show you why that's so important. So when we look at the 2 swings, we've got the swing on the left-hand side was the first shot, swing on the right-hand side was the second shot. So if we look at width of stance, I've got a 13-inch wide stance for the first one, 19 inches for the second. Now the graph at the bottom is showing how I move my weight and pressure kind of side to side. So the narrower stance really hinders how much, and you can see as I get to the top of the swing, as the club changes direction, there's only 7% of my body weight is kind of moving side to side, whereas when we look on the swing on the right hand side, I'm up at 15%. So using the ground in a completely different way. Now, what that enables me to do is because I can then move towards the target better, I'm able to move my low point further forward. And if I get those both to impact, we can see not a huge difference in kind of shaft lean, but certainly on the right-hand side, that hip is more out the way, the leg's starting to straighten, and it's because I can get pressure onto that left foot and really feel that by moving side to side, I don't see my pressure shift as much towards my toes. It then gets down into my heel more, and it's just enabling me to deliver the club on a better path, more club face control, and slightly more speed. Right, so you can see there that when I stand narrow, it really robs my ability to move my pressure side to side, makes me much more rotational. And the danger with that is I start dropping the club on the inside. As everything's rotating, my hands get too involved, and I really find it hard to get that low point ahead of the golf ball. And even though the shaft lean is not different, it feels like my hands work much more that way. Whereas when I get wider, because I'm able, as I get to the top here, to shift my pressure to get the club to change direction much more aggressively, I get much more into that left side. And even though there's not that shaft lean, as I'm here and that low point's further forward, the club face is much more stable. And for me, it really feels then that even when I make my normal golf swing from there, just feels that I don't have that ability to hit the big left one. Now that one's obviously not quite shaped back, but again, we can see nice centered strike, low point well ahead, very consistent with the club path, but that face there just a little bit open. And obviously it's one of those things that for me, if the handle's ever getting behind, we can see that club face is getting closed because of how I use my lead wrist. Now, if I can get my body out the way and in front a little bit more shaft lean squares that club face up. And the real bonus for me is you can see their low point and path start to become very consistent. And it almost feels that once I get a little bit wider, I can actually be a little bit more aggressive with the golf swing. And I'm not saying I hit everything perfectly doing that, but we can see there, more speed again, low point nicely ahead. That's creating that ball and then turf contact. And definitely for me, you know, that extra little bit of speed gives me a little bit more distance. And when I can combine that with a bit more accuracy, that's the best of both worlds. Now, what I would say, I do see golfers though, who are incredibly wide. And when we get them on Swing Catalyst, we can see that even being wide for them, side to side isn't great. Their body's trying to twist, but it's becoming very restrictive. So they're the golfers, and if you're one of those golfers who feels wide and doesn't really create the speed and distance you want, try going a little bit narrower, and then once you're there, you can make your swing, and if that rotation is how you generate your speed, you're going to hit better shots. You can see me there though. Club speed dropped down, low point wasn't as far forward. Again, very, very playable. That one actually got out a little bit further, but it definitely for me feels that lots are going on. And even though I don't play a lot nowadays, it's still important for me that I understand my golf swing. And even if you've not got access to something like Swing Catalyst, sometimes just experimenting with narrow and wide stance, or even if you're somebody who's really push, being a little bit lower at address. Don't ever be afraid of experimenting, but don't judge off one shot. Hit a handful, look for patterns, and when you see something that's better, really get there. So for me, it's a conscious effort of being a little bit wider, setting up, putting a good swing on it, and absolutely, I could take that all day long. 88 mile an hour, nearly 4 inches ahead, a little bit more from the inside, but club face almost half that, 166 carry. And like I said, you know, for me, I've always tended over the years to go with what's worked generally well, but because it's felt different going wide and I haven't understood the benefit because I haven't had that feedback, I've never really been willing to make that change. This year, I've definitely made more of a conscious effort with having this, and as a result, it's improved my game, and hopefully, if you've worked through the video with me, it'll help your game. Now, as ever, thanks for watching. If you're interested in a free fundamentals package of videos, just pop to my website, alitaylorgolf.com, enter your email, and I'll drop 5 videos that aren't on my YouTube channel across to you guys to help you with your golf game.